people speaking. Good evening. Welcome to the City of Riverbank Regular City Council and Local Redevelopment Authority Board meetings. Today is Tuesday, July 24th, 2018. The time is 6 p.m. Please stand. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do you have anyone from the ministerial? Seeing none, please be seated. Roll call, please.
Council Authority Member Leanne Jones Cruz. Here. Council Authority Member Cal Campbell.
Here.
Council Authority Member District 2 Cindy Fossey.
Here.
Vice Mayor Chair Darlene Barber Martinez.
Here.
Mayor Chair Richard D. O'Brien.
Here. There will be no changes to the agenda tonight. Any council or authority member or staff who has a direct conflict of interest on any scheduled agenda item to be considered is to declare their conflict at this time. Seeing none, we move to item 1.1, the proclamation National Health Center Week. And will you care to join me up front, please? Glasses, important here. And thank you for being here.
Thank you.
This is Yamale Valdo.
Valladolid.
That's it, exactly what you
That's
said. And today we're proclaiming National Health Center Week. The City of Riverbank proclamation, whereas health centers are a critical element to the health system, serving both rural and urban population, and often providing the only accessible and dependable source of primary care in their communities. Nationwide, health centers serve 1 in every 6 residents in rural areas. Whereas for over 50 years, community health centers have provided high-quality, affordable, comprehensive primary and preventive health care in our nation's underserved communities, delivering value to and having a significant impact on America's health care system. Locally, Golden Valley Health Centers have been serving our communities since 1972. Whereas every day, healthcare centers develop new approaches to integrating a wide range of services beyond primary care, including oral health, vision, behavioral health, and pharmacy services to meet the needs and the challenges of their communities. Whereas health centers nationally employ more than 200,000 people, including physicians, nurse practitioners, behavioral health specialists, physician's assistants, and certified nurse midwives who work as part of the multiple multidisciplinary clinical teams designed to treat the whole patient. Golden Valley Health Centers has a team of over 900 people. Whereas health centers are on the front line of emerging health care crisis, providing access to care to our nation's veterans, homeless communities, addressing the opioid epidemic, and responding to public health threats in the wake of natural disasters. Whereas during National Health Center Week, we celebrate the legacy of America's health centers and their vital role in shaping the past, present, and future of America's healthcare system. Now therefore, the City Council of the City of Riverbank do hereby proclaim August 12th through August 18th as National Health Center Week and encourage residents to take part by visiting their local health center and sharing and celebrating the important partnership between America's health center and the communities they serve. Signed today, July 24th, 2018. And I'd like you to address us, if you will.
Thank you. Well, it's an absolute
First
pleasure.
off, photo op. He's taking them. Anybody else taking them?
Ready?
Yeah, I'm always ready.
Right here.
Over there, we have to get Al. He's the official phone photographer.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to accept this from the City of Riverbank on behalf of Golden Valley Health Center. Golden Valley Health Center invests definitely in the health of the overall community. And we're very fortunate to have a health center here in the city of Riverbank that we're very, very proud of. And we continue to help our community thrive. Any partnership, anything that you would like to include us in the future, health fairs and such, we definitely would like to participate and continue to bring those resources to our communities. So thank you, Mayor, thank you, council members, and thank you to the community to continue to support us, and we appreciate your support.
Well, I have something.
Mhm.
We have a nonprofit, faith-based, and civic community leaders meeting,
Mhm.
and we discuss items like that, homeless, and how to meet the needs of the underserved. And next time we'll invite her.
I would
invite
love
you-
to be a part of it, yes.
Okay.
So I'm the manager of government affairs, so please
Oh, that's
include
even
me.
better.
Please
You can help
include
get
me
us
and-
money.
And Annabelle, yes, Annabelle has my information, so yes, absolutely, any partnerships or anything that we can do.
Okay?
We're definitely here for that task and work, strategically with the cities, to ensure that we are really, addressing the social determinants of health of the communities that we serve.
Well, thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Ken,
Thank
good
you.
luck.
Thank you very much.
Public comment, no action can be taken. At this time, member of the public may comment on any item not appearing on the agenda and within the subject matter jurisdiction of the City Council LRA Board. Individual comments will be limited to a maximum of 5 minutes per person, and each person shall speak once during this time. Time cannot be yielded to another person. Under state law, matters presented during the public comment period cannot be discussed or acted upon. For record purposes, state your name and city of residence. Please make your comments directly to the City Council LRA Board. I'm going to be the first one to make public comments. Over the last year, we've had a lot of complaints about neighbors versus neighbors, people not getting along, cars parked in front of someone else's house where they believe it's their street when it is actually a public street. We have people who doesn't like the looks of a vehicle and complains about it. Just people not being civil to people. And we're in neighborhoods, and in neighborhoods, we have neighbors. And I would expect that we as neighbors work out our own problems. But the city keeps getting them. And we're complaint-driven. You may see a lot of the yard sale signs up throughout, posted on streets and on lamp posts, on stop signs. No one really goes after them, but that's not right. We hope they would take them down. If not, we take them down for them. But if a neighbor complains about someone has their street sign out on a stop sign, I want it taken down, then that's a complaint we have to address. So in the future, as people have difficulties with their next door neighbor, person behind them, anything, let's start working this out individually so it doesn't have to be addressed or an ordinance be placed to say, stop being unneighborly. That's my comment. So I'm opening it up to other public members.
Good evening. My name is William Johnson. I've met you all before, or most of you. I'm with the Veterans Advisory Commission. I'd like to thank Stanislaus County. I would like to thank the city of Riverbank for all they've done for veterans, especially your memorials every year, your memorial thing out in front of the community center. Since I was here about 3 years ago, and when I was first appointed to the Veterans Advisory Commission by Bill O'Brien, we've come a long way. I think you all know about our new building, the Vet Center, and right next door is the county office for veterans. Some of the things that have been accomplished just through that, we now have the Aging and Veteran Services right next door, which means our veteran service officers are right next door to our hall, our Veterans Hall. Because of that, the increase in them helping veterans has tripled. Now we had a report last night at our meeting, and it's just amazing. I've got we've got people coming from Tuolumne County and San Joaquin County to get help because our veteran service officers are young and they care. The other thing is our building has become a model for other counties. I'm right now working with the United Veterans Council of San Joaquin. They're trying to get the same kind of stuff established. But one of the things I'm especially proud of is we now have a new veterans, you're talking about health care. We're the only county in the state of California that provides rides to disabled and homebound veterans. Before, they had to catch the bus at 6:30 in the morning in downtown Modesto on Oakdale Road at the clinic. They would not get home sometimes till 7 or 8 o'clock at night. They had to ride an old, uncomfortable, rickety bus. Through the Vet Van program established through Aging and Veteran Services and through the cooperation spearheaded by the VAC and also by the tax dollars that were the eighth of a cent that was increased a couple of years ago for transportation, fixing city potholes, stuff like that. We were able to get grants. I am a vet van volunteer driver. I pick the vet up. If they make an appointment, I pick them up, take them to their appointment, wait for them to get done, bring them back, drop them off at their house. Pick them up at their house, drop them off at their house. That's something that's been done through the VAC, through our deal with the county next door. So that is a program I'm very proud to be part of. We also have, you were talking about homeless. Every year we have a homeless veteran stand down through our Veterans Employment Committee. And we're having one this year at Cressida Park on October 25th. If you know of any homeless veterans, or even veterans that are just need help, they may not be completely homeless, but they may be poverty stricken and could use the help. We're going to have the VA is going to be out there. We're going to have social service people out there. We're going to have all kinds of help that they can get. It's going to be from 9 in the morning to 3 in the afternoon at Cressida Park, October 25th. And I invite Golden Valley, if they want to be a part of that, to get a hold of me. I'll give you my card.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, since I've only got 5 minutes, I'll cut to the chase. I was here 3 years ago when I was first appointed, and my very first commission meeting that I threw was here in Riverbank. And it was a great experience. Everybody loved coming here. I loved having it here. They've asked me to move it around because I represent the whole District 1. Well, it's been 3 years, and I'd like to come back to Riverbank if that is at all possible. The last time you guys waived the fees, because we have no funds, we're not funded in any way. So if that could happen again, I would really appreciate it. The date that we have in mind is September 24th at 5:30 p.m. We're usually done by about 7:30. And it's gotten bigger than when we had it here the last time because we got more county agencies reporting. So it would help us, and it would really help the city to know what's going on with the veteran population here in Stanislaus County. So, any questions?
No questions. Only comment is, can we have your contact information?
Yes.
Or you contact the city, because there are a method of how you proceed on that, and you know that.
You're right. Yeah, I worked with you guys before. In fact, you're all still on my email list. I
Just drop
believe.
it off on the clerk, to the clerk, please.
Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Good evening, Mayor O'Brien and City Council. My name is Larry Bird. I'm a director with Modesto Irrigation District, and I'm here this evening to ask maybe for a little support or resolution of some type on the SCD, the Supplemental Environmental Document, the water battle fight that we're having with the State Water Board right now. So I know that most of you are pretty well aware of this. Right now, we asked for an extension on they want all comments in by the 27th of July. They just dropped us on 3 weeks ago, right? So we knew this was coming, but we asked for an extension. They denied it. We expected that to happen too. I'm going to talk very freely here. I think the State Water Board is the enemy to our valley. I think we're in, right now, this is the 11th hour that I've spoke of for the last 5 or 6 years. I haven't been here in front of you personally, but I recognize your faces, and I think I know who most of you are. We're really in desperate need for your voice and for the city of Riverbank to help us out with this SED. And maybe in one way, it's just to be a resolution just in support of us at this time. They're having the hearings on the 21st and 22nd in Sacramento of August. We're hoping that would be disruptive and move out a few weeks, but we're not so sure that's going to happen now either. I think it's actually going to be the 21st and 22nd. I know that Adam Gray is putting together on the 20th, on Friday, or it'll be Thursday. I think Thursday's no, I'm wrong about it's the 20th. I don't know what day of the week that is. Monday, I think. Yeah, the 20th. So I think there'll be a line of tractors and people, expressing their opinions on the 20th, 21st, and 22nd are hearings. I will say that what they gave us back was no different. They didn't change one sentence in the document. So there is no negotiations. You've heard of negotiation. I know you have, Mayor. There was negotiations going on back and forth for the last 5 years. There is no negotiating. There has been. It's never been where we could sit at the table and without giving up water. They only have one thing on their mind, and that's water. It has nothing to do with, we've offered up restoration. We've offered up millions in restoration programs, cleansing of rocks. I mean, I can go on and on. You guys have been reading about this to improve the Tuolumne. I know you guys are on the Stanislaus, but you're also involved with the Tuolumne because your district is part of Modesto Irrigation District. So I'm going to kind of leave that alone. It's a little separate from the FERC, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, and that is the relicensing of Don Pedro. We feel we're getting a little closer there now, but the problem with that is the State Water Board intertwines with that because they have mandatory conditioning on our license. So, and there's 4 environmental entities and the State Water Board. So there's 5 entities that have mandatory conditioning on the relicensing. Are you kind of following me? I didn't mean to skip from the SCD to the relicensing, but I did that because I have a reason for that also. It's the State Water Board is our threat on the licensing as well as the SCD. They haven't moved on anything. Fortunately, last Friday, I had the honor and the pleasure to meet Secretary Zinke, and he is going to help us. This was the most fresh air I've seen in the 7 or 8 years in terms, 8.5 years in the middle of the relicensing already. So we have a little help there now, and maybe we can move that along because we've been kind of kicking the can down the road, but so has everyone. But in the meantime, it's just costing us millions of dollars. So far in the relicensing, we have around $30 million in that alone. So I'm going to leave you with this. Thank you for letting me come here today. And I brought you a little present. So you can pass them out how you like. Or I brought this for the city council and the mayor, but there's more than enough in here.
Okay.
Who do I hand this to?
You're going to hand that to the clerk?
Okay. Okay, and the hat is, so go ahead, you can read it if you like to them. Until,
It says, until the last drop, our water, our future.
okay. Thank you very much, and here's some hats, and
Thank you.
I hope that we can get a little help.
Thank you.
Did I give you, you don't need, you know my name's good enough.
I know, Larry. Mr. Bird.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Public comments? Seeing no further public comments, I bring it back to the council. We're going to move on to item 3, which is the consent calendar, consistent of item 3A, waive readings. Item 3B, approval of June 26, 2018, City Council and Local Redevelopment Authority minutes as amended. Item 3C, 2018 Conflict of Interest Code biannual notice. Item 3D, award bid for the wastewater treatment plant entrance road improvement project to Garrett Thompson Construction Incorporated and authorize the execution of future change orders. Do I have any comments or recommendations on the consent calendar? Do I have any comments from the public on the consent calendar? Seeing none, what's the pleasure of the city council?
I'd like to make a motion that we accept the consent calendar as stated.
And we have a second. We have a motion to approve the consent calendar as amended and a second.
Council Authority members Fosse,
Yes.
Campbell,
Yes.
Jones Cruz,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Chair Barbara Martinez,
Yes.
Mayor Chair O'Brien.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Item 5.1, conduct the first reading by title only of an ordinance amending Title 15 Land Usage, Chapter 153 Zoning, Section 153.032 Usage permitted with a use permit and/or Section 153.033 Building Requirements, Single-Family Residential District R1 Zone by repealing these sections in their entirety and substituting them with a new Section 153.032 Uses Permitted with a use permit and/or a new Section 153.033 Building Requirements, Single-Family Residential District, R1 Zone, to the Riverbank Municipal Code of Ordinances.
Thank you, Mayor. As council may remember, about a month and a half ago, council discussed this issue at length. The direction of staff at that time was to create a range of alternatives to address the issue that's been brought up. And so what you'll see, and Donna's going to step you through, is everything from most restrictive to do nothing at all. And so she's going to step you through the various options that she has come up with through research and talking to community members and a lot of work on skate ramps.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. As stated, this is a zoning ordinance amendment concerning personal skate ramps in the R1 zoning district. As you may recall, that this came about due to a code enforcement complaint about noise and privacy concerns between neighbors. The Planning Commission discussed those concerns at public hearings and workshops, and the City Council conducted a hearing and took public comment in May of this year. This is the type of structure that we're talking about. And you might be able to see in this one, it actually reaches above the fence. So there are 4 options presented tonight. The first is a conditional use permit. It can be used to regulate the personal skate ramps on a case-by-case basis. Currently, a CUP is about $2,600 in fees and requires a trip to the Planning Commission. But there could be an option. You could create a minor use permit as well, maybe at $1,000 for somebody to apply to have this type of structure in their backyard. The benefit of it is that the neighbors are all notified, so all those who care to comment can come to the public hearing and give their point of view. The Planning Commission had talked about the CUP being a little bit expensive, and they had recommended that setbacks and height be used to regulate ramps. Part of the language presented tonight concerning height and setbacks where portions of the half pipe, which is the structure itself, may be located below ground, but in no case should the ramp top where they land should not exceed 6 feet in height above ground level, excluding the handrails. And then also within the R1 district, setbacks were suggested as a possible help, which would keep the structure 12 feet away from the side or rear property lines. Council could also determine a ban to keep these from being in our neighborhoods. Or if you don't believe it's a problem, you could choose not to regulate. So as I mentioned, the Planning Commission in May are recommending the regulation of skate ramps based on the height and the setback restrictions. Their vote was actually 4-1, with the dissenting planning commissioner preferring a ban because there are skate ramp or skating opportunities within the city. Our general plan has an overreaching goal so that noise does not substantially reduce the quality of urban life. So if you choose to adopt an ordinance amendment, it could be consistent with the general plan. This isn't a project per CEQA, so does not need CEQA analysis. It's just a text document. And the recommendation is to introduce the ordinance amendment for its first reading, whichever of the three choices you make. The fourth of non-regulation would not require a first reading. And I'd be happy to answer any questions for you.
Before I open it to a public hearing, are there any questions for Donna?
I would like to just clarify a couple issues. In our staff report, I just want to clarify that the District R1 is not a specific area. It's citywide, correct?
Correct. We have several areas that are designated R1, and this would apply to each of them.
Okay. And then also in our staff report, there was mention of a time limit, 8 o'clock. And I was wondering, why wouldn't we suggest that it would coincide with the regular noise cutoff time at 10? I just think that would cause too much confusion between everybody if we set specifics just for that issue at 8 instead of being combined for 10 o'clock with everything else for noise.
Sure. The 8 to 8 span was just a recommendation if you were to choose the conditional use permit process. Otherwise, staff would have, no way to regulate the starting time.
Okay.
Meaning, if you went with option 2, it would just fall back onto the normal noise ordinance, right, Donna? So 10 o'clock.
Yes, unless you
Right.
choose to make that time different.
Okay. And it's, as the mayor stated earlier during public comment, that it's unfortunate that we have to come up with an ordinance, but I just hope that we don't have to do that in the future. Thank you.
Any other questions before I open to a public hearing? Seeing none, this is a public hearing. Please come forward.
Hi, folks. I'm Dennis Thomas, resident of Riverbank. First, I'd like to say I understand the dilemma of the decision that needs to be made here. It's basically the right of a resident to utilize his property as he chooses versus the right of a resident to the peaceful enjoyment of his property. But I don't think we're grasping the amount of disturbance this creates. Second, I think we need to discuss property value loss as a result from a structure that's been added 2 years after I bought this property. No matter how much I like my home, I'd have never considered purchasing it if the skate ramp had already existed. Commissioner Robert Ball stated in a public planning commission meeting that he had been considering a home to purchase in Turlock until he discovered a skate ramp next door and immediately backed out of the deal. Mr. Ball also stated he spoke with realtors about the ramp in question, and they stated they didn't even want to think about the difficulty of selling an adjacent property. I've spoken with realtors, and they told me I would have to disclose to potential buyers the impact of this ramp on my property. So who wants to buy my home? Who is responsible for my loss in my property value? Surely the person who has erected this structure, possibly the city for approving it when no permission or permit was issued prior to the construction. Who is going to be responsible for a person breaking their neck on this ramp? Surely the person that erected it, possibly the city for approving it. Does this person have insurance to cover possible injuries? Shouldn't the city require proof of insurance on this person? I think these are serious, relevant questions. I think this is a bigger issue than just neighbor against neighbor, because this could spread out all over the place. Also, if this is going to be approved, why can't we require construction materials that will reduce the noise impact? Those ramps are constructed of hollow wood frame and plywood, not solid concrete like the city skate ramp. The sound vibrates and sounds like the worst drum solo you've ever encountered. Why not fill these hollow ramps with spray foam? Why not require carpet padding under the skate surface? Why not require soundboard, which absorbs 85% of the impact noise? All the materials are available at Home Depot. And also, for the privacy issue, why not require privacy screening for the person that wants to erect a structure like that? After all, it is called a privacy fence. We all have a right to the peaceful enjoyment of our homes. I think it's a huge mistake to allow this, and to allow it without minimizing the noise and privacy issue, I believe is negligent and unbecoming of your service to the public. That's all I got.
Any other public comments for this hearing? Seeing none, I close the public hearing, bring it back to the council for discussion and/or recommendation.
My comment would be, I agree with the gentleman that just spoke. I would not want one in my neighbor's backyard. However, that's not fair to regulate it and to say none, but I think there has to be some limitations where we don't have it more than 6 feet and it can't be closer than 12 on the side. I think that's a reasonable compromise, rather than saying none, because it is a person's backyard. It's a private area. That's my comment.
I think that the gentleman had some good points, and theoretically, everything he said was correct, but at the same time, we should allow somebody in their backyard to do what's reasonable. But I think that word reasonable needs to be looked at, because sound is very, very important. And if you had two of these on both sides of you, maybe we should consider having some of the suggestions the gentleman gave to us to help reduce that sound, because I sure wouldn't want to be in the middle of it. I don't want to not let them have their way with what they want to do in their backyard, but I do think that it needs to be controlled so that it isn't affecting the noise with the people that are nearby and whatnot.
Have you looked at anything to take down the noise or put any of that into?
Those are all things that could be added as part of a conditional use permit to regulate. We could look at heights, we could look at setbacks, we could look at materials, we could look at hours, lighting, noise. All those could be covered, or some of them could be covered by a conditional use permit.
Once again, this one's a tough one. I completely agree with the resident in, if I lived there, I'd be down here at the city council saying the same thing. I would. I also just struggle with the council, setting ordinances about what we should or shouldn't do in our backyard. And I appreciate all the time and effort that's been put into this, coming up with some sort of a solution to go down that road. I mean, I don't think we could just sit and not do anything. So I think the only one I would like to see taken off air is to maybe on one of the end or the other. I'm not for a complete ban, but I'm not for complete regulation either. So I wish there was a simple solution for this, and it's not.
We regulate bans throughout the city on certain
Yeah.
topics in areas. We ban RVs out in driveways in the crossroads. We say those aren't permitted because that's the crossroads but we don't do anything about it unless there's a complaint. It's complaint driven. We ban marijuana throughout the city. If someone grows it in the backyard, we do nothing unless we know about it. It's complaint driven. This is a complaint and it's driven. So we have to figure out some way. I wish it was more general in noise abatement, not specific to one activity, because we're going to have so many other activities that can be related to noise that beyond 10 p.m. and prior to 7:30 p.m. a.m., excuse me. I get my times mixed up. They're civilian times. So where do we go with this? This is our first reading. And I'd like to, before we move for a vote, take a straw between each one of these options. I don't believe item 4, item 5.1.14 is acceptable at this point. It's come to us. So now we have to take action, not only for this one particular item, but for all future items. Again, someone can have a skate ramp in their backyard, city knows nothing about it, or neighborly around them. That's fine. But as soon as a complaint comes to us, then we have to take action.
Okay.
So right now, we have to do something in the future and also determine what is responsible in this case. And you guys can stop me anytime. So straw poll just on number 5.1.14. Any in favor of that?
Well, we've got to eliminate one of them, and I think number 4, in my book, needs to be eliminated.
I'd say toss it.
Right, I agree to eliminate number 4.
Okay.
We're already working on it.
All right, yeah, we're doing something on it. Now, a conditional use permit is expensive. And I agree that we should have some type of streamlined.
Minor permit?
Yeah, minor permit, but not $1,000.
Okay.
Okay, if we're gonna go and say, hey, you have to have, let's say we have noise dampening materials in there, there's your $1,000. So that may be something that we may want to consider going through the planning commission. But figure out some way. The other two are conditional use permit would do the same thing as number 2, but this is without a conditional use permit, without any knowledge of it at all for the city. Again, most of that will happen anyway. but there's no hammer if someone doesn't accept it.
So let me make sure I got them right. 1 and 2, you have to get a conditional use permit for either one of them, correct?
Wrong.
No, no.
Other way around?
No,
Yeah.
number
Sorry.
1 is a conditional use permit,
Number 2 is not.
is not. We just zone it and saying, we're now accepting it, just like if we just say all of a sudden, which everybody bought into, people bought into reasonable privacy when they bought their homes, and they expect it. Just like landscaping in front of your neighbor's house, you expect it to be kept up because that's what you bought and that's what is in the regulations. Nothing happens unless, again, we have a complaint. So this would be, again, complaint driven, but number 1, you can have a hammer if someone doesn't go through it and is not being neighborly.
Well, so Mayor, number 2, there is a hammer included as well. So like, for example, if you think of it like we regulate sheds in the backyard. You can put a shed in your backyard. You don't got, if it's under a certain square footage, you don't have to get
Within
a
20.
Yeah, and no electrical. You don't have to get a building permit. You just have to make sure you're so far from the fence line, the property line, and then you're all good. Number 2 would act a lot like that. So provided you've met all of the setback areas, you're in good shape. If a neighbor notices, hey, that's awful close to my fence line, they would give us a call. Donna deals with probably, I don't know, hundreds of those every year where someone places it too close. So we go out and go through the normal code enforcement process and get them to move it to a reasonable distance from the fence line.
Sean, I have a question too related to what the gentleman said a few minutes ago, the safety issues. If you buy a trampoline, it's usually built by some factory and they put safety issues into it. If you build a swimming pool, there are things looked at. Now, we know that skateboarding can be dangerous, and I personally think there ought to be some safety standards that they should meet that our inspectors need to look at. I mean, does anybody just throw one up and say this is it, and without having something to look at it to see if it's really safe or not? That bothers me a little bit.
Yeah, so I totally understand that, and I think the problem that we have is that the California Building Code doesn't view skate ramps as structures, and so therefore they're a lot like a deck. We don't go out and inspect decks, not because it's not possible that it could be unsafe, just because there's a line at which the building code says, okay, this is all we're doing. We're not going into the land of decks, and skate ramps, for whatever reason, fall into that as well. I don't know if we're allowed to go. I suspect there probably is allowances for us to go more restrictive than the current building code, but that's super rare. I can't think of a time when that's been done. Can you?
No, not off the top of my head.
Yeah. So even the use permit really wouldn't address that very issue. That's really just about, the use permit process is really just about, is this okay with the community that lives around you? And if it's not, they're going to show up at a planning commission meeting and let the planning commission know about it. The second option is much more, look, in general, we've decided that if you're going to have a skate ramp, it's got to be a ways away from your fence and no higher than this level, and we think that's going to deal with 99.9% of the situations that are out there. And so it's a very difficult situation when you have a specific problem versus trying to legislate what you're going to do for the entire community. So there's not really a wrong answer to it. It's just the question really for the council is how much regulation do you want on it? And then in addition to that, like, so for example, if you went with option 1, which is fine, how much of the city's resources do you want to commit to processing those kinds of applications, if at all?
Again, you mentioned about decks are not, really looked at. Nobody skateboarding on a deck can break their neck usually.
That's true.
And that's an issue that I think we need to really consider for safety. This particular sport gets up some speed, and, people can get injured. And if I realize what you're saying about the California code and whatnot, but that still doesn't exclude, are they safe or not? And I think we have a responsibility as a council to make sure that they are. Because I would feel very badly if somebody put one together, held shelter and somebody broke their neck on it.
I don't know that that's our responsibility. I have a pool in my backyard. I don't think the council's going to
That's
regulate
pool is
if somebody
inspected for standards. though.
jumps in and hits their head on the bottom. I think that the homeowner needs to be responsible enough to watch the kids that are using it and have the insurance should something happen. I don't know that that's something that council can regulate. Otherwise, we're going to start regulating all kinds of safety out in the city. We don't want
I
to
understand that, but again, the pool is inspected and made to be at certain standards, and you're right, they should have their insurance. All I'm saying is, I feel that skateboard should have a certain amount of standards for general safety. That's all, you know? I don't like putting controls, just like you guys don't, but I do believe things ought to be safe. And it bothers me that any general carpenter could just throw one up and say it is safe, and somebody might use it and get damaged because they didn't have enough support in it and it wasn't inspected.
Okay, well,
If I may, I just wanted to add something about the second option, which would only be the setback and height restriction. It wouldn't allow you to, put any other type of restriction on it like a CUP would do. Since many of our backyards now are 10 feet, maybe 15 feet, number two would go a long way to restricting many backyards from having them, because if you come in 12 feet, that just leaves you a little bit of a ramp before you actually get to the house. It wouldn't be large enough. So it does kind of have a self-limiting feature to it on that. And as far as people constructing homemade things, my daughter was injured on a homemade go-kart in someone's backyard, and their insurance covered all the costs of her injuries. And I believe that would probably be the same case with skate ramps.
thank you. Nope. Okay, people, kids, they all do things that are unexpected. I remember back in 1960s, there were 7 brothers trying to see who could jump further off the roof. So no matter what you have, you can have people like that. I didn't win, but Chuck did. The option 3 of prohibition of the personal skate ramps, I don't believe is what we're looking for. It's not like marijuana. It's not like, the RVs that we have all agreed to in certain neighborhoods. It's not like, the standards that we've agreed to when we bought the homes, how we have to maintain them. So I believe that's out. So it's between number 511 or 512. If we do 512, there is a hammer on it if they go against it, Sean? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, so essentially what would happen, let's say, let's take the gentleman's example earlier. It's built too close to property lines, it's within the setbacks, we get a phone call, we go out, we inspect it. 90% of the time, people comply. They just say, oh, okay, I didn't know, and they move it to wherever it needs to be. 10% of the time, you get into a code enforcement situation, you fine them, or you lien their property, or you continue with a number of other punitive measures until they comply, and we always get compliance. Not always in the time frame we want, but we always get compliance.
Okay. All right. All right.
I'm leaning towards number 2.
Okay.
I am too. And with number 2, we could continue to get noise. That's my concern. So,
Well, I think when, what was stated on sound dampening materials,
right, so we could
That-
add that in there.
and you have at a certain distance, 50 dBWs whatever is appropriate. Let's say at the fence line, 50 dBW. If it exceeds that, it's on their side that you improve the sound dampening qualities. No, that's something that can be written in there as we go forward.
I agree with that.
And you wouldn't have to do that tonight. That would not be considered
No,
a
but that would
substantial
be,
change.
that would be for a second meeting.
second,
That would
right.
have to be in.
We could add
So,
that in for the
please,
second
look
reading.
at sound dampening materials,
Go with that.
and then a reasonable DBW at fence line, property line. And reasonable timeline.
Mayor, just so we can drill down on the decibel level, would it be okay if we go with whatever the allowable decibel level is at that time of day per the noise ordinance? Because I forget what it's, 65,
It's
Donna?
65.
Yeah,
65,
yeah, it's all consistent, you know.
get consistent with DBW,
And
because
10
I
o'clock
do
at
know
night.
that some things can come a lot louder.
So you want,
I was saying 10 o'clock at night, so that there's no confusion about 8 o'clock, 10 o'clock, what's what. We're across the board, we're at 10 o'clock at night.
Any other recommendations?
I need a clarification. And I'm sorry. I'm just, this was a lot of information, which one was which. I got that squared away. But I want to just take a second and go back to the height, because one of the issues with this is that the height of the thing at 6 feet, they're still standing on top of it over the top of the fence. And so I'm wondering if anybody else had any issues with that. I mean, you're not really, yes, you're moving it 12 feet away, but 12 feet away, you're still standing 6 feet, which is the height of the fence. I'm wondering if we can even, I don't know, but I know that that's one of the issues also.
Right, I have a two-story house. I have a neighbor with a one-story house. If I want, I can look in the backyard. I choose not to. But we have single-story, double stories throughout the city. You expect the right of privacy, and I would hope people observe it, but you can't regulate someone's action like that. And if their behavior is questionable, that's under a different ordinance. If they're raising up to perv
Your
over-
argument's the same thing for all the way around. I mean, I agree with you and I get it, but what you're saying is what we're dealing with. I mean,
Well, dealing with
it's the-
noise, right.
It's the whole reason why we're looking at it. So if we're looking at it and regulating it, then regulate it. Do you know what I'm saying? I mean,
No, I don't.
we don't necessarily want to, we're struggling with the dilemma of regulating and not regulating. And I think I'm hearing that we want to regulate it. So if we're going to regulate it, then regulate it. And that's my only thing. We're putting a little bit of a Band-Aid, but if that's the direction that it's going, a little bit of a Band-Aid's just kind of trying to make everybody happy here. And I don't know I mean, okay, yes, we're making some strides in solving the issue, but if that's the road we're going to go down, you got to.
I don't understand what do you tell us what you want? Because Cal Campbell on a 6-foot skateboard.
My problem is I don't know what I want. I'm just
you have
struggling
Sean
with the
on a
dilemma of it.
6-foot
And that's the
skateboard, you
issue.
have a,
No, I get it. No, I'm not trying to argue your point. If you can't tell, I'm kind of conflicted up here. But if, my only point is if we're gonna regulate it, then 6 feet isn't gonna do a darn good if it's up against the fence or 12 feet back. That's my only thing with number 2.
if you take a look at,
So
At
I don't
your-
know that I have I don't know that I have a suggestion to fix it, but that's just a dilemma.
your height of eye at a fence line is almost 100% in the next yard. But if you're 12 feet back, you have a very limited amount of, if you're a
Yeah,
normal
that's true.
6-foot person, you have very limited. It's like a ship on an ocean.
Yeah,
You know, at the height of eye, you get to see more than you are lower to the ocean because of the curvature of the earth.
And another comment to that too is, as the mayor said, I live in a 2-story home too. And next door to me, when they built, I was there first, but they pushed their 2-story house back to overlooking my pool in my backyard. I wasn't real happy about it, but that was their right. So I planted some trees to block it. you as a resident in your yard are responsible for some things. They're entitled to their rights, and we can't solve everything. No matter what we do, we can't stop everybody from looking into your backyard. If you want to take that because it bothers you that much, you have every right to ask either to build a bigger fence or to put vegetation in that will screen you. But, that's an individual decision that each neighbor has to make. So I think we need to consider that too, because no matter what we do, we're not going to stop being able to look over your fence into your neighbor's backyard with the two-story homes and even real tall people like Sean. Me, I can't see over the fence, but that's another story.
If I might, I believe the 6 foot is just an arbitrary number. If somebody wanted a 6-foot high landing space, and for example, if you chose to do a 4-foot height limit, they could sink that bowl 2 feet down in the ground, which would not only help with the sound, but also would help with the visibility over the fence.
And I think another component here is these as they're written in option 2 are going to make it very difficult for the vast majority of properties in Riverbank to even have a skate ramp. Because if you think about it, most residential lots are like 50 feet wide in general. So if you have to go 12 feet on either side to stay out, you've lost 24 feet right there. And, most folks are probably not going to want to plop a skate ramp right in the middle of their lawn or whatever they have in their backyard. So the vast majority of situations will be solved here, though not all of them. And Donna's right. If you wanted to drop the height limit down, you can certainly do that. That's not a problem either.
I was thinking 8 feet sunk 2 feet gives you enough momentum to do whatever they do. I don't know. Okay. All right. Do I have a recommendation on item 5.1?
Well, I would like to make a recommendation for item 5.2. 5.12. Say that right?
Yes.
I second.
With any modifications?
With the modifications that we had suggested.
Sound,
Which ones? Are we talking about a lower deck or just the noise?
noise level setback, materials.
And the decimal, the sound.
I'm all right with the sound stuff. Why can't we lower the level of the deck? Anyone have any issues with that?
No, and that might be a good ideal to do that, because if they're looking for height, like for, some kind of sports thing, they can go out to the regular skate park and do it there.
Okay, so the existing one would have to be sunk 4 feet, because it's 2 feet above a 6-foot fence.
Or it could be sunk 2 foot if you wanted a 4-foot platform.
The picture you
They
showed
needed the
us,
6 feet.
the picture you showed us had 2 feet above the height of the fence.
That was being worked on and did bring that skate ramp higher than the 6 feet.
Okay. I'm at your pleasure. I'll say 4 feet. They can be a 20-foot ramp if it's buried 18 feet in the ground.
Yeah, exactly.
For conductors.
Okay, so make sure I'm hearing you. I'm going to address noise through the hours, the materials, the setbacks, and a 4-foot height. And the setbacks you want left at 12?
Yes.
Yes.
And did you say height?
Yeah.
The height of 4 feet.
Okay.
But that doesn't preclude, if there's enough land surrounding one individual who doesn't have a skate ramp, for neighbors on all 3 sides plus kitty corner around it. So
What?
that's okay. That's okay. So number 2, is that with a 4-foot height? Do I have a second on that?
I second.
Okay, we have a motion for the first reading of the public hearing on item 5.1 accepting item 5.1.2 to include sound dampening materials, height restriction of 4 feet with skateboard operating hours during normal noise regulated times with this noise regulated decibels. And we have a second?
Council members Fosse,
Yes.
Campbell,
Yes.
Jones Cruz,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Barbara Martinez,
Yes.
Mayor Bryan.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Item 6.1, a resolution approving Riverbank's participation in the new Stanislaus Drug Enforcement Agency and authorizing the city manager to execute the associated joint powers agreement.
Thank you, Mayor. Chief Kiley's going to give the first part of this report, and I'll finish up the last part.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. I'll start off with a brief background. The Stanislaus Drug Enforcement Agency has existed in one form or another since 1974. All law enforcement agencies in the county have participated with federal and state authorities to carry out SDEA's past mission of investigating major narcotic offenses. Historically, the operational and fiscal administration of SDEA has rotated back and forth between Stanislaus County and the city of Modesto. Modesto's last term of administration has been ongoing since 2008. The governing body of SDEA is comprised of the sheriff, the district attorney, the chief probation officer, and the chief of police of each participating agency. Staffing challenges at MPD have prompted SDA board decisions and discussions, and ultimately the SDA board decision to create a new joint powers agreement in order to, number one, rotate administrative responsibilities back to Stanislaus County. Number two, expand the mission of SDEA to include violent crimes, gang-related crimes, human trafficking, and other highly sensitive investigations related to narcotics trafficking. In addition to investigating these crimes, SDA is the only unit in the county with the ability to enter, investigate, and dismantle butane honey oil labs and fentanyl sites. As in the past, the new GPA requires an in-kind contribution of personnel or a cash contribution based upon population. That's amounted to $15,000 annually for Riverbank in order to participate in the SDEA. The new JPA would be a 3-year commitment with opt-out options and will automatically renew from year to year after that. With that said, I would like to recommend to the council that you consider approving a resolution authorizing Riverbank's participation in the new SDA JPA, to authorize the city manager to execute the agreement, and to authorize the city manager to execute the agreement after he gives some, I think he's going to give some fiscal background as well.
Thanks, Chief.
This goes retroactively to July 1st to June 30th, 2021?
Correct.
Yes.
And then it renews automatically after that.
Okay.
So, staff, especially administration, is in favor of this. This is one of those sort of added value things that are difficult for smaller communities to fund on their own. This is, a specialized task force that comes in and takes care of things that is maybe not necessarily an everyday need, but every so often need for sure. We've participated in the past. It's been part of our budget for some time. We believe that it's important to continue to participate. The council, if desired, could also provide a little additional direction. We could continue to fund this out of the general fund, which we have for many years and we're prepared to continue to do, or this is in line generally with council's policy on the public benefit fund, and so you could choose to fund it out of that account as well, which would reduce the liability in the general fund. So either way, it's something that the city of Riverbank can afford. Thank you very much.
Any questions or comment before I open it to the public?
Yeah, just one. Are we making that decision as to which fund it's coming out of tonight?
You could wait until budget, or you could give us direction tonight and we'll take care of it. Either one.
All right, seeing none. I open this to the public for any comment. Seeing no public comment, I bring it back to the council for consideration and/or recommendation.
I make a motion that we accept item 6.1 as stated.
A second.
We have a motion to approve and a second on item 6.1 as stated.
Councilmembers Fosse,
Yes.
Campbell,
Yes.
Jones Cruz,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Barbara Martinez,
Yes.
Mayor O'Brien.
Yes,
Motion passes 5-0.
thank you. Item 6.2, a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a professional service agreement with Keldon Sinnock Nuddeck Engineering as, I know I said that last one wrong, to consult to oversee the smoke testing of the collection system for a total of not to exceed $31,933.
Thank you, Mayor. Michael Riddell, our Public Works Director, is going to give this report. Michael, I know we talked about this a little bit before the meeting, but the end of your report, I had a question from the community about the camera that was purchased and some of the cameraing that was done years ago and how this deviates from that or is different than that. So if you could address that at the end of your report, that'd be great.
Well,
Or now.
when through our sanitary sewer management plan, one of our requirements is to be able to show or prove that our pipes underground don't leak. When I first got here, the city had no equipment to do so. And they were looking at contracting out a lot of that work, which would have cost us probably 5 times the amount it does to purchase that camera van that we currently have. So we have the capabilities to do mainline camera work, and we also have a lateral camera that we go ahead and, for the residents, we'll go out if they have a problem with their lateral, although we're not responsible for it, we'll go out and TV it, because that was a commitment we made to the residents when we passed that ordinance. The unit that we currently have is for mainline. What we're proposing here to do is to smoke test the whole system. So it would be the main lines, it would be all of the laterals, and any connection that we may find into our system. And I've done this on a couple other occasions in other cities, and I can guarantee you we'll find connections that we didn't know were there. And we'll also find out where we're getting water into our system, the infiltration into our system by doing so. And this is also part of our requirement through our sanitary sewer management plan.
Thank you. Now just the normal report.
Okay, so nothing like putting me on the spot, right? So what I brought forward to you tonight is just that, looking to authorize the city manager to execute a professional agreement with KSN. That's the easiest way to do it, Mayor,
Thank you.
because I can't pronounce that first one either.
So was the last one I had problems with.
That's New Deck. That one's
New Deck.
So what we're proposing here is that KSN will come in and oversee the project. They will also do all the bidding for us. They will prepare the RFP. They will go out and outsearch the contractors. Then we will sit down with them and pick out the best contractor for the work. Then they will oversee the work as it's being done along with us. This is not having them do all the overseeing. We'll be involved in this from start to finish. But they'll oversee all the little nuances in this, which is obviously we'll have to let the public know about what's coming, when it's going to come, and how we're going to go about it. I can guarantee you we will find things out there that could very well end up with putting smoke in a home. So obviously the residents are going to need to know what's happening and when it's happening so they don't come running out of their house thinking they're burning down. And the fire department gets called and all this kind of good stuff. So this is all in this contract that we will be putting together. And then obviously they will, after it's all said and done, we'll take all the information that's gathered and put it in a report form for us and make some kind of recommendation on correction. I'd be happy to answer any questions, or I can run through this.
No, my only question is, how is your outreach going to occur? Because we're supposed to have outreach all along, and each time someone doesn't get the outreach.
Well, typically what we've done in the past when we're doing this, when I've had this done before, when I actually in the city of Ceres, when I was over there, when I was the supervisor for the wastewater treatment plant, we did it ourselves. Okay, so typically what we did is we ran a campaign. We used the local newspaper. We used the local news service In other words, we had channel 3, 13, and 10 come out, and we let people know what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. And then we set up a strict schedule. And prior to that schedule coming to the area, we went in and hung door hangers to let them know day and time that we would be there. And then what would occur and what they would need to do if something were to happen. Now, will we get 100%? No, we won't, but we should be able to get the majority of it, and so most people will know what's going. And at the same time, when we're working an area, because we'll lay it out into sections, the police department and the fire department will know where we're at and where we're working, type thing.
And
So
the smoke is not toxic.
it is not. It is not. So this is typically kind of I know it's kind of a simple picture, but this is kind of typically how it works. You introduce the smoke through a manhole, and it travels through the pipes because it's fan forced. And you obviously want to do this in the summertime because you want the ground to be dry so the smoke can come out. So as we're doing this, you can see that basically what we're looking for is any infiltration or inflow, and it also will show us any illegal connections or anything like that. And this is a time-tested process of doing so. Right? There is really no other true blue way of doing this other than smoke testing. The only other options you have when you're doing that is to do a considerable amount of camera work, and then you got to have the ability to have a lateral launcher and all this other kind of stuff, and you're still not going to find everything. Okay, so you can see that, like we were talking about, the video inspections and techniques certainly are important components of the I&I, but this is kind of the end-all to be-all when you do the smoke test, because the research has shown that approximately 65% of all extraneous stormwater inflow enters from the system somewhere within the manhole and the main line or a lateral. So what we'll find is we'll find pipes that have separations where they're working their way up. If the smoke can get out, water can get in. So we can identify those areas. Then we can go in and take a closer look, either with the mainline camera or the lateral camera, to get specific right where it's at, be able to locate where it's at, and be able to come up with some kind of plan to correct it or repair it.
So I understand the process, Michael. You fill the pipes with the smoke. It's not under any pressure, is it?
No.
Okay, Joe.
No, it is fan forced, but it's just enough to get the smoke moving through it. Typically what you'll see is that, and if you've ever paid attention on a really cold day, when you go by a house, you'll see smoke coming up out of those little pipes in the roofs, the vents, because of the heat difference, right? Well, that's the same thing you'll see when we introduce the smoke. If you have a bathroom that's been installed correctly, permitted, and has its vents, there will be no issues. If you have a bathroom that was maybe put in on the side and they, for whatever reason, didn't vent it, that smoke's going to find a way out in that bathroom because it wasn't done correctly, things like that. And that's usually where we end up with issue when we do that. I can think offhand of about 6 occasions, and we did about 90% of series where we actually hit some place that we ran smoke into and what we found were basically drains that weren't supposed to be there, or drains by pools and such different things like that.
Approximate time span for this will be like a couple of months?
I would say somewhere between 45 and 60 days. Once we get on the ground, once we get everything established and get a schedule going, you want to be right along and keeping going along also, because you don't want to have delays in between, because then you got people guessing when you're going to be there.
Okay,
So
thank you.
we'll have to sit down and make a pretty rigid schedule, and then obviously the contractor will have to follow it.
So I have a question about, I'm sorry, will you finish with your report?
I'm good. Go ahead.
Okay, sorry. So with the results of the testing, what are we going to do with those results?
Well, once we get all that information compiled, KSN, as the consultant for this, will also give us some type of plan on what we need to do to try to correct this. And most of this, I suspect, not all, but most of it's going to be covered when we did our rating, because there was a lot of stuff that was put in there through the rate increase to try to take care of a lot of the older areas. So we've got funding coming for this. It's not like we're just drawing this out of the air or trying to figure out how we're going to pay for it. The funding's already been established through that rate increase.
Oh, one more, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
No interruption to residential sewer line
No, ma'am.
service or anything?
You'll be
Okay,
able to
just
flush your
wanna-
toilet all you want while we're doing it.
All right, just want to make sure.
We wouldn't want to mess up your bathroom.
Yeah, well, if you're sitting there and all of a sudden smoke starts rolling up, you know that there might be an issue, so. I'm sorry?
No, it wasn't for me.
Yeah, exactly. And we found quite a few of those. Believe it or not, we found in the commercial areas a lot of roof drains off some very large roofs tied into the sewer system. And I can guarantee you we're going to have a lot of smoke coming out of that cannery over there.
Zone Point.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other comments before I open it to the public? Any comments on this item from the public?
I'd like to see some information on what is in this smoke that you're going to be putting through there. And I'm assuming it's also going to be pushing sewer gases up too. And I'd also like clarification on what happened, especially in the older parts of town, because you've got a lot of older houses that may not be what you want them to be. If you don't like what you find, does that give you the right to come on the property and fix it or tell us to fix it? What happens then? Where do you go forward with that? Because this is what you're looking for.
Thank you. On the corrections on private properties.
She's right in the sense that if there is someplace, what we tend to see in that kind of area is like missing caps off of cleanouts and those kind of things. But if they have a lateral that has an excessive amount of I&I, and they will have to correct it. Okay. That is part of our ordinance. The ordinance reads that the property owner is responsible for the lateral all the way to the main line. And as far as the smoke is concerned, Evelyn, I can certainly get you the information on what we use.
In addition to that, from time to time in these kinds of projects, you find laterals that were non-permitted that maybe we don't even know exist within our system. And so if you think about it, if you're a ratepayer that's paying your sewer bill every month, that means that person is not, because we're not aware that they're connected into our system. So essentially what's happening is you're paying for their sewer. And so we want to identify all of those so that if they're using sewer services, they're paying for them.
Correct.
How about sewer gases? I haven't experienced that. But
you won't in that sense as long as you have the P-traps that are working correctly and you've had your piping installed correctly. P-traps are a designed water seal. They basically, if we're pushing smoke into your building, then you are already getting sewer gases in that aspect. So we can help you correct that problem. If a P-trap is working as designed, then you will get nothing in there. And if it's vented as it's supposed to be, you will get nothing in there. I'm sorry?
No, that's okay.
Okay.
All right. Any other public comment? Seeing none, thank you, Michael. Bring it back to the council on item 6.2. Go ahead.
I make a motion to approve item 6.2 for.
I'll second it.
We have item 6.2, a motion to approve in a second.
Council members Fosse,
Yes.
Campbell,
Yes.
Joan Cruz,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Barbara Martinez,
Yes.
Mayor O'Brien.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Item 6.3, a resolution for approval of the equitable project cost sharing and reimbursement agreement with the Stanislaus Tuolumne River Groundwater Basin Association for preparation of a groundwater sustainability plan.
Thank you, Mayor. This is something Michael has been working on for quite some time with his group, and so he's going to step you through the agreement.
So since Larry was here and kind of filled you in, I don't think there's anybody in San Joaquin Valley that doesn't know about the unimpaired flows and what can occur and how it's going to occur and what kind of effect it can have on us. So the group that we're talking about here, the Stanislaus Tuolumne River Groundwater Basin Association, I know it's a mouthful, we have been part of, meaning the city of Riverbank has been a part of since 1994. This group was originally formed as a way of getting together and being able to make a one voice say to the state or to the feds about how our water is being used and how we're going to go about it in the Modesto subbasin, which the city of Riverbank is in, and so are the other people that's in this group. So that being said, through that process, there you can see that it was formed in '94, and we've gone through to promote coordination, groundwater management, planning activities, and provide this. There is the core group, everybody that's involved there. So in this process with the Modesto subbasin, when we got to the point where the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, or SGMA, was passed in 2014 by our governor, and looking at the framework for the groundwater supplies for the local agencies and doing this, and calls for the formation of the Groundwater Sustainability Agencies, or GSAs, which was to be done by June 30, 2017, which you guys passed an MOU for that, and a resolution that put us in that group and have a memorandum of understanding for the GSA, which we are now a member of, right? So continuing on with that, there was a call for the preparation of the Groundwater Sustainability Plan, and in that, and that plan is due to be done by January 31, 2022, and then we're supposed to be able to achieve groundwater sustainability goals by January 31, 2042. So in the process of that, the group applied for a grant and was awarded a $1 million grant for the formation and the basically coming up with the plan, to write the plan, to pay for the consultant to do so. The cost of that is about 1.469, so there's 469,000 that needs to be paid for. And basically what the group did, and when they looked at that, is we looked at an equal cost share for everybody to participate. And the figures that you have in front of you show the initial cost for our share, and they also look at talking about a 10% contingency fee. Now, what the group proposed was to pay the fair share cost up front and not pay the 10% contingency fee unless it's needed. So I could come back to you at a later date asking for more money. It'd be like Oliver Twist with my hand out, right? So what I'm asking for now, and what Sean and I have discussed looking at this, is the ability to enter to this agreement and then to go ahead and pay our fair share of this for the development of the groundwater sustainability plan.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Of all the groundwater basins in California that has management, which one has the best and all others are emulating?
It's us. It's the Modesto Subbasin.
Of course it is.
Yes, sir. They've been doing it.
And it's
probably
necessary.
Yep.
Because some of the other groundwater basins are in trouble.
And I think probably what you could say here is the Turlock groundwater subbasin is running a close second with us, only because they're using a lot of the stuff that we've already done.
Right.
And then you're right, they're emulating that. But we're also getting an economy of scale through Todd Groundwater doing this work for us, because they're also working for TGBA, which is the Turlock Groundwater Basin Association. So we're getting some of the stuff, and they actually went after and got the plan started a little bit sooner than we did, just by virtue of the vote and how it planned out. But that means that Todd Groundwater has already done some footwork for them that will be the same work for us, and it makes it cheaper for us.
Thank you. Any questions before I open it to the public? None? Any comments from the public?
I just have one question on the $77,000. It's coming out of the water fund, which is our Prop 218 water fund. It's coming out of CIP Prop 218 fund. It's going to them, and they're going to put it in a non-capital CIP account, which my understanding is that account is a lot more open. It's not governed by Prop 218 or what the money would be used for if it was in our account. It's more open to what they want to use. I'm just wondering, can you take money out of our 218 assessment account and put it into an open account like that?
Yes.
Thank you. Any other public comments? This is necessary for our groundwater sustainability in our future, as when we start doing tertiary and others, that we can keep this groundwater sustainability, and we should achieve it well before 2042. And I would expect by 2024, the state will be regulating our groundwater very carefully. I can't look at sooner. Okay, any other public comments? Okay, bring it back to the council for consideration. or recommendation?
I think I would like to make a motion that we accept item 6.3. And that's the recommendation as stated.
I second.
We have a motion to approve item 6.3 in a second.
Council members Fosse,
Yes.
Campbell,
Yes.
Jones Cruz,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Barbara Martinez,
Yes.
Mayor O'Brien.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
All right, the most important one. Item 6.4, designation of voting delegate and alternate to represent Riverbank and participate in the business meeting at the 2018 League of California Cities Annual Conference.
Thank you, Mayor. So as council knows, annually the league requests the city council take action in order to participate in the business meeting that happens at the very, very end of the conference when everybody really wants to go home. And participation assures that, our voice is heard well as when they establish their policy for the upcoming year. Voting delegates and alternates must be registered to attend the conference. So the entire council is attending this year, so any of you could be the voting delegate and/or alternate. One little wrinkle I would add into this is that flights were very limited back from Long Beach, and so 4 of us will be flying back, I think, pretty quick right after the vote or maybe even during the vote. So we probably should consider that when we're trying to decide who's going to be the voting member.
I'd like to make a motion that Mayor O'Brien be our voting delegate.
I'm leaving right after the city council meeting because I have resolutions the next day at 9 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
Because I'm driving, I get penalized.
Well, we would have liked to if you would have flied with us, but actually, if.
Okay, all right, go ahead.
Okay.
People are laughing out there.
I'll second it.
We need an alternate. I will make a motion for the alternate just in case something happens to me, that the vice mayor be the alternate. And if I'm there, you can fly home. And if I'm not there, you can fly home later.
I accept.
Okay, before we move forward, this is a public business, and if anyone from the public wishes to comment. We're taking this lightly, but the league is very important to us. So it's just a predicament that they've just placed me in.
Council members Fosse,
Yes.
Campbell,
Yes.
Jones Cruz,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Barbara Martinez,
Yes.
Mayor O'Brien.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
All right, item 7, staff reports.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to congratulate you on being the voting member for the league this year. In addition to that, 2 other items. But first, we had some water pressure issues in the Crossroads area and actually throughout most of the west side of the community today. And Michael's going to give us a little update on what happened, why it's happening, and in the future, probably later this summer, we're going to need to have a discussion probably at a council level about our water supply.
So this morning, we were hopping big time because we did have a pretty good pressure drop. It wasn't just one thing that occurred. It was one of those Monday, Tuesdays type thing. We lost VFDs on one well.
You have to spell that out. I know what it is.
Okay, it's a variable frequency drive. It's what tells the well to turn on and off and how fast to run. Okay, so we lost Jackson, so it went down. Then Pioneer lost its flow meter. So the pump was seeing nothing moving, so it shut itself off, right? We had Wharton down because we've been having some issues with sand at Wharton. And we've been trying to see if we could get it to clear up because we were last week, towards the end of the week, we were getting some complaints about brown water. So we located that issue, and that's what we were trying to correct. So Wharton was down on top of that. We had gone through we've installed a new SCADA and SCADA software.
And spell that out, please.
So you're going to put me on the spot. It's a supervisory control and data acquisition system. So basically what it does, it oversees it for you, and it should tell you when something is wrong, and it should actually correct whatever the issue is, because within this city, we have 2 peaking reservoirs. It's those 2 big, nice, pretty painted million-gallon tanks that you see. And they're designed that when we have pressure drops, for whatever reason, they come into play to boost the pressure. Through the new upgrade in the SCADA system, we glitched. And what I mean is that reservoir didn't come into play. So that just compounds. So it was kind of a cascading effect. So as we're, I think we got our first notification locally by one of our employees that it's about 6 a.m. this morning. So they had been running since then to try to correct the problem. By 8:30, we were back up to about 58 PSI within the system. At no point did we ever drop below 25. That's our magic number that we're not supposed to go below, and at no point did we ever do that. Although I'm sure there were some people that were kind of surprised, and I think Maricela was one of them, about how much was trickling out of her shower.
That's not good.
Yeah.
How do you know what her shower was doing?
I don't. She lives in the same area. So,
What is going on with the shower?
yep, you and a lot of other people. And my understanding is they were hammering us pretty hard on Facebook. So that's kind of what occurred to us. What can we do to correct it? We've already obviously did that as quickly as we could, and we're in the process of getting the VFDs replaced, and we're in the process of replacing the flow meter on Pioneer. At this point, not a big deal. Jackson, we just throw it in on manual and keep it pumping because it's a 600 GPM well, so it's not going to hurt anything for it to run all the time type thing. So we get there. One of the things that I did take a look at, and I have talked to Sean a little bit about, is water production and the amount of water we've been pumping. And it's starting to climb on us. And so when we're looking at this, I kind of went back and took a look at just last month, which was June of this year, compared to several years back. And we're getting back into the point where we're starting to climb into the realm that we were at before 2014, when we got ourselves in trouble because of the amount of water that was being used when the state decided to tell us to report. Okay, I still have to report. Obviously, there's nothing there anymore as far as regulation is concerned, but they will start taking us to task, no doubt, when I keep running that 30 and 35% increase in front of them. So that is
How is
something
that comparing to our urban water management plan?
we're still there. We're still ahead of the game when we get to that point.
That's what
But-
the state has officially put down. Well, that's what we have to do.
Right.
And as long as we meet that, I'll take the heat for anything that anyone says, especially when a regulatory board is doing legislative responsibilities in punishing this area.
Yeah, and I understand that completely, but the other side of that coin is that they still have, through the State Water Board, put in restrictions on the state, which means that they have the ability to come in and say we're using too much water. So, and that's the reason why we're still being required to report. So they can keep that on there. And I suspect that if, because so far this summer's been pretty hot. A little bit more than the last few years. And when we get into these really hot spells, you see the water production go way up. And it only goes way up for one reason, and that's because of their landscape irrigation. Any questions?
It's just something I think that we got to be aware of when you're talking about a 21 to 25% increase year over year. What Michael worries about is, look, it's not that our basin can't sustain the amount of water use. It's that our equipment has to run at full clip to keep up with the demand, especially in the crossroads areas. And so over time, that ends up being a little bit worrisome. So we're just going to kind of keep a close eye on it. As the community continues to grow, things will change a little, because keep in mind that now there's no allowance. Homes you see built these days will not have grass front yards. That's no longer allowed per state law. So you'll see alternative landscaping in the front that should be drought tolerant. So over time, the problem will abate itself, but in the short term, we'll kind of just keep council updated on what's going on.
Okay.
I just had a comment on that too. I'm just wondering with our metered watering that will be in shortly if it won't take care of some of those things too. I have a suspicion that when folks see exactly how much water they're using, I know I probably will be in shock.
Yeah,
myself.
When they start having to
my
pay for that
curb-
water too.
Exactly.
That will
And I can only speak for myself, and I already know. I was like, ooh, I better tune back a little on that.
One
But it is
November.
hard. I think that might be
Ceilings
just an observation and comment.
Thanks, Michael.
Thank you, Michael.
Only two other items. We have been working very hard with the Historical Society on the time capsule event, which is Friday, August 17th. There will be an event where anybody can attend that wants to kind of be part of the removal of the time capsule and the examination of its contents. And then there's a fundraiser that evening, I think, to start at 6:30, which there'll be a band and food and tickets for that event are available here at City Hall and through a number of folks at the Historical Society and a couple places throughout town. So see me if you're interested, and we'll get you hooked up with a ticket. And all of those proceeds are going to be split between the Historical Society and the City of Riverbank Recreation Division. Finally, St. Francis of Rome Church has asked me to coordinate a meeting amongst the faith-based leaders of the community to get on the same page about encouraging voter turnout and give some information about voter registration and how to so that they can go back to their congregations and really try to encourage a better turnout than Riverbank has had in the past couple of elections, which has not been great. So we're working on that. I don't have a date yet, but when I do, I'll share it. And I think we may even get someone from the Registrar of Voters office to come down and give some specific info about how to get registered. Thanks.
Can't you do it? Can't you do it?
I would think that you would want your registrar of voters to do it.
Okay.
She's in the middle of election season. She's very
That's right, and
busy.
she has candidates to worry about. All right, thank you. 7.2, Councilmember Fossey.
I'm on Facebook quite a lot, and I see a lot of the comments. One of them was on the water pressure this morning, and I indicated that I had already brought that up to Sean, although I didn't do it when I woke up because I didn't want to wake him up. One of the things I do see a lot of comments on, and I wanted to comment on, was the parking of RV boats and such in driveways. And there's a lot of people that are not happy about it. And I just want to explain that we have this ordinance in effect for several reasons. One of them for me personally, and most of these reasons that I'm giving are personally why I don't want to have them in my neighbor's driveway, is security. When you have a big RV or a boat, it is hard to see down your street, and that can create some security concerns in the neighborhood. Also, it does have an effect on curb appeal for homes in the area. And finally, it can, because it has an effect on the curb appeal, it can decrease the cost or selling a home. Be aware of these things. While I'm sure people that have a motorhome, unfortunately I do not, like to have it at their house to be able to take off when they need to, there is an effect on the neighborhood, and not everybody does like seeing them in driveways. But as has been mentioned several times tonight, it is a complaint-driven. We don't just go out and say, oh, there's an RV, we're going to go ahead and tag you. It is complaint driven. So if you have an RV and you need to keep it in your neighborhood for a week or two for some reason, my suggestion is that you go to your neighbors and say, hey, this is what's going on. I'd like to, be able to have this here. I promise it'll be gone. And then you won't get the complaints sent to the city, and they won't come out and cite you for it. I appreciate you listening to my opinion, and hopefully that'll calm it down on Facebook. Thank you.
Councilmember Campbell.
I'd just like to reiterate what our city manager said about coming out to the event being hosted by the city and the Historical Society. 50 years ago on August 17th is when they buried the time capsule, and was when the community center was dedicated. They had a big party, big dance, big times. It was just a goal that they had met. And this can be your chance to play a part in the history of the community and to see a little bit of it when we open up that time capsule. Likewise, too, I'm going to emphasize about voting. If you know people that haven't registered, encourage them to vote. It's very important. And the vote, they may not think it's important, but it's extremely important. There are a lot of places and countries in the world that don't have that privilege. Thank you.
Councilmember Jones Cruz?
I just wanted to take 1 minute to comment on Bill Johnson, the veteran that came in. I appreciate his thoughts. I know he's not here right now, but and I just wanted to thank him for his service along with those other veterans that are out there, and just take a moment to do that. We are what we are today because of those veterans, and I appreciate every one of them. And thank him for coming tonight, and look forward to hearing what he has to propose for us. I got a chance to go to the family fun night, and boy, was it hot outside. And I was like, okay, I'm going. And you know, I have to say there was plenty of shade, and it was a fun time. The musician that was there was really awesome. I was really impressed by him. I think he's on the front page of the Riverbank News, if I'm not mistaken. So I'd encourage you to go to the next one. I believe there's one more. So if you get a chance, even though it is hotter than Hades out, there's plenty of shade and there was a little breeze, so it wasn't too bad. So please come in and come for a little while and check those out. Also, the other thing that's going on in Riverbank that if you haven't got a chance to go check out is also the movie in the park night. Those are pretty cool. And you bring your lawn chair or blanket out there at Jacob Myers Park, and they have one more of those, and I believe it'll be in 2 weeks because they just had the one on Saturday night. So there's a lot of stuff going on. Unfortunately, we've had some crazy weather where we haven't seen less than 100 in a few days, and we're looking for some more hundreds. So stay cool out there, and please check on your neighbors in this kind of heat too, and mind your pets also. Thank you.
Vice Mayor?
I just want to thank everyone that came out to our family fun night out on July 11th, where we had the Kids Health and Safety Bicycle Rodeo. We had approximately 300 people to attend, and our police services gave out approximately 80 free helmets for bikes for kids. And we also had a raffle drawing for 9 bikes. There were lots of toys to give away and gift cards. So I just want to thank everyone for their support and being sponsors to help make that a success. And we do have one more night, which is tomorrow night, starts at 5:30 to 8. We have food vendors, craft vendors, informational people that are out there. So I hope to see everyone there. I'll be there. Thank you.
Thank you. Starting on Friday and continuing next week, our Measure L monies will be used to first to seal cracks along Oakdale Road, followed by slurry seals. So just be advised there's going to be delays while they're doing that. Just a heads up, we have that posted, and we'll be keeping the community and the businesses along the way appraised. I want to comment on Mr. Bird's comments on the water grab, and it is a water grab. The Sacramento River supplies 80% of the water that goes into the delta. The tunnels, the twin tunnels of 40 feet in diameter, which 40 feet in diameter is huge, 2 of those pumping water directly bypassing the delta into the aqueduct going south, is a blatant water grab. They're saying, well, it won't affect, the smelt. It's going to affect the delta. There's going to be brackish water in the delta if they're not careful. So that's why they want a 40% increase along the Stanislaus, Tuolumne, and the San Joaquin rivers. That has nothing to do with fish. Has nothing to do with fish. The way they want it to be done is after the fish have swum up the river and spawned, and then you stop before they swim back down the river. They're using the current administration's scientific for Governor Brown. It doesn't make sense, or it could be fake. I don't know. So I would encourage all the electeds to go on August 20th using the San Joaquin, which is the train that'll leave early enough in the morning to get you there at the state capitol for the rally on the 20th, and then you can return in the afternoon. So your total trip time plus the rally will be 5 hours. It'll cost you something in the neighborhood of $22 or something total if you're a senior. I don't know about you, Cal. But it's well worth it. And if all of you would like to participate, please join us on the San Joaquin going north to Sacramento. Participate in that rally. Let them know that we understand what's going on and we don't like it. I have a question to the legal team. If the state of California can ignore certain laws that are federally mandated, can we disregard a regulatory request for giving up our water rights? If we did nothing, what would happen to us?
I can't answer that as we sit here. I can say that this take is replete with legal causes of action that I could think of to fight it. So that's another angle I hadn't thought of. But Mayor, I just want to say too, on a practical versus legal matter, you know, this has been framed as a farmers versus fish, and you smoked out the real issue. This is just source water to send to fill swimming pools in Beverly Hills and other.
And their lawns are greener than mine. Okay. There's something that this council should consider, whether we support SB 1 or if we are on the border of SB 1 or if we are opposed to the repeal of SB 1. We need to discuss that. I think that the sooner the better on that. And I would like to know is if SB 1 funds are available without a severe restriction in the MOE that we have to pay to obtain SB 1 funding.
We'll agendize that for the next meeting, and the league has requested council take a position on that matter, on the repeal of SB 1.
Yep. They want us to be positive against the repeal.
Yes.
But I wanted an honest discussion so we go away with eyes wide open. Okay, that concludes the remark. We go to closed session. Before I go to the closed session, the public has the ability to comment on the closed session for 5 minutes prior to us going into the closed session. Item 8.1, conference with real property negotiators pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.8, property 062-031-005, 062-031-006, 062-031-007, agency negotiator Sean Scully, city manager, property negotiator Metis Inc. Item 8.2, conference with labor negotiator pursuant to Government Code 54957.6, agency representative Sean Scully, city manager, employee organization, mid-management bargaining unit. Item 8.3, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, significant exposure to litigation pursuant to subdivision Bravo of Government Code 54956.9, one potential case. Is there any public comment? Seeing none, we adjourn to closed session.
Thank you for attending.
From closed session, item 8.1, council with real property negotiators. Direction has been provided to staff. Item 9.2, report from closed session on item 8.2, conference with labor negotiators, miscellaneous and mid-management bargaining units. Direction has been provided to staff. Item 9.3, report from closed session. Item 8.3, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, 2 potential cases. Direction has been provided to staff. With that, this meeting is now adjourned. Good night. Good night.